Welcome back to another episode of Hot Topics, powered by the Suncoast Tampa Association of Realtors, live from Fabre Framework Studio. I'm your host, Quan Rimmer, and today we're stepping into the ring to take on one of Florida's most challenging arenas, insurance.
Yeah.
It's complicated, it's constantly changing, and it affects everyone who owns or wants to buy a home in our state. In this corner, a Tampa Bay native with deep local roots. She is the marketing manager at Florida All Risk Insurance, having grown up in the insurance business, bringing in over 25 years of industry experience to the table. She is not only fluent in the intricacies of home and flood insurance, but also as an active community leader, serving on the boards such as St. Petersburg Women's Chamber of Commerce and the National Association of Insurance Women. Her focus? Helping realtors, lenders, and homeowners navigate Florida's complex policies so they can protect their assets and move ahead confidently. Please welcome Paula Blanda.
Oh, thank you so much. Very excited to be here. Very excited.
And in this corner, representing for Tampa's independent insurance agencies, she is the current and reigning president of Cybert Insurance Agency, a Tampa-based firm with a legacy dating back decades. She graduated from Florida State University with a degree in risk management and insurance. In 2002, she's earned her CPCU designation, and in 2012 became president of her family's agency. She has led the firm through modernization, embraced technology, and cultivated strong advisor relationships across real estate, homeowners, and commercial lines. Her deep understanding of carrier trends, mitigation credits, and regulatory shifts makes her a go-to voice for agents and homeowners alike. Please welcome Karen Rowan.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes. Perfect. So we'll get started, ladies. First question is going to be, Florida's insurance market has been called the most complicated in the nation. Why is that? And what makes insuring homes here so unique?
Would you like me to start?
You may.
Great. And everybody, I am Paula Blanda. Just call me Paula the Insurance Lady. Gosh, what makes us unique? Well, I think your jacket says it all. It is a hot market and there's a lot going on. What's happening, and I'm sure you might agree with me, we have so many carriers that will not write in certain areas in Florida. They might be writing in other states, but they say, hey, no, we're not going to do that in Florida. We have some companies that might not write in certain counties or zip codes. And also the underwriting is very, very strict. In all my years, it is the strictest underwriting we've ever seen. So it's extremely, extremely challenging. And that's why it's great to work with an independent agent, because we work with literally hundreds of carriers to help navigate with our clients the best coverage at the best rates possible.
Yeah, can't agree more. The only thing I would add to it is when you look at the property in Florida, 79% of our property is considered coastal, and you compare that to any other state, and no state can beat that. So we have so much that's so close to the water. That's why, as Paula said, we have a lot of national carriers that don't want to write in Florida because it's kind of like going to Vegas and rolling the dice. If there's a hurricane, like unfortunately what we just saw happen in Jamaica, it's devastating, and it's billions of dollars lost from one storm because we have so much property that's packed so close to the coast.
What's the biggest misconception people have about homeowners insurance in Florida?
I would say the biggest misconception that we find is flood insurance is covered under my homeowner's policy, which it's absolutely not. Flood insurance is a separate policy that you have to purchase. And that is any rising water that comes from the outside that covers one or more parcels of land. And so that's the biggest misconception I think that I see.
I would say I agree with you on that. I have so many clients that think they have flood insurance within their homeowner's policy. There can be, of course, water damage in your homeowners if your pipe breaks, let's say, but no flooding for the rising tidal waters. A lot of people do think that insurance is somewhat like a maintenance plan. Gee, my refrigerator broke, I've got to get a new one. Is that a claim? Sometimes folks feel like it's more of a maintenance or warranty, where with insurance we have to be covered by or be affected by a named peril like a storm or a fire to have coverage. It's not a warranty or maintenance plan. A lot of my clients tend to think that every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
You kind of touched on that. Many homeowners don't actually know what their policy doesn't cover until it's like too late.
Right.
So like, what are the top exclusions people should watch out for?
Well, I'd say now, and I'm sure you see this too, Karen, we have many, many carriers that on some older homes, they might say, hey, we're not giving you any water damage. So if you have a pipe break in the wall and you've got a foot of water in your kitchen, you might not have coverage if you've got an older home on certain policies. Or some of them cap that coverage to $10,000. So you could come home to a foot of water in your kitchen because your pipe broke. $50,000 claim later, they might only cover up to $10,000. So that's one common exclusion we're starting to see, mainly with older homes.
Absolutely. Yep. And then also screened enclosure coverage is a popular one. If you have a screened cage, you want to make sure that you've got specific coverage for that on the policy because that can be excluded or limited. A lot of times, animal liability, something you don't think about. If you have a dog or a cat even could scratch somebody and cause them to have damage and then get an attorney and try to sue you. One of the craziest claims I've had is a dog ran out of my client's house, went to the street, stayed on my client's property, but the neighbor got scared, tripped and fell, tore her ACL, and sued my customer. And it was an animal liability claim, and it was a $50,000 claim. So you got to watch out because a lot of times it's excluded or it's limited to, say, $25,000. So you definitely want to let your agent know about animal liability. But yeah, that and the water damage. Actual cash value on the roof is another one that they're doing now. So yeah, so you say you have a 20-year-old shingle roof and a hailstorm comes through and damages the house, and that you need a new roof. Well, if you have an actual cash value endorsement on your homeowner's policy, you might only get $1,000 check for the roof because they'll depreciate it for 20 years of value. And so that's really important. There's a lot of gotchas, replacement cost value between, versus actual cash value on your contents. A lot of times customers are trying to save money. I get it. It's expensive. So they may cut back and say, I only want actual cash value because I saved $400 on my homeowner's insurance policy. But what we like to say is basically, if you do have that covered loss, so a fire, you're going to get garage sale prices for your stuff instead of replacement costs. So if you can buy a couch at a garage sale for $200, you might only get $200 for your $2,000 couch, even though it costs $2,000 to replace it. So those are some things you want to watch out for.
There's no way we could keep going without you sharing a little bit more. I need to hear more about the dog situation.
Sure.
You got to share. How did that go down? Because this is about to be the craziest thing I've ever heard.
I know the dog never left the property, but you get an attorney involved. You can, you can turn a lot of things into something that are nothing when you get an attorney involved. But this particular situation, the neighbor supposedly tripped and fell because the dog was barking at her, and supposedly that's how she tore her ACL. Who knows if it was already torn and that's just a way to get it to pay for? I don't know. But yeah, it came back on the animal liability piece. You also have personal injury too, which is, say your kid goes out on a website and bashes some business, and then the business comes after you because it's your child who's under the age of 18. That could be considered, libel, slander, personal injury endorsement. If you don't have it on your homeowner's policy, there's no liability coverage for that. So there's a lot of things. Golf carts are another thing. We've seen some bad claims where people think, I'm covered driving around on my golf cart. As soon as you leave the property, there's no more liability coverage. As soon as you leave your house, which if you live in West Chase, you might be living on a quarter of an acre. As soon as you go into the street and you run somebody over or somebody gets ejected from the golf cart, something bad happens, which I've had those claims. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I've seen bad claims with golf carts. No coverage unless it happens on your property for liability. So and all these things are solvable with separate policies or increased limits. But these are the types of things that you want to be aware of when you're buying a home policy. You don't want to just go for the cheapest price, especially these days. I'm sure Paula can attest to it too, being in the business so long. DP1 policies are now popular, which basically cover nothing. It covers fire. They exclude so many things now on these policies. You have to really watch for the form. You want an HO5 or an HO3 if it's a homeowner's policy, and that's really important because of the comprehensive coverage that you get with it versus buying a stripped out policy. It's gotten kind of crazy because the price has gotten high. So I get it. People are wanting to fit a house into their budget, and insurance is one of those things that you don't ever think you're going to need, but when you do, you want the right type of coverage.
And another thing to piggyback on that, if you change the occupancy of your house, let's say you have a home and you're going away for a few months and you decide while you're away, oh, hey, I'm going to Airbnb it and make some money. That might make your homeowner policy null and void. You have to disclose to your agent and agency and company what is going on in that house. Are you living there? Are tenants there? Are people coming and going? Are you running a business out of your house? The occupancy factors are huge, and most people don't know they have to contact their agent when they make these changes.
Yeah. Another one to piggyback on what she's saying here is you let's say you have a separate structure, it's a garage, and then you turn that into a business, a gym where you're training people, or just an office, and it could be an eye doctor, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to save money on rent, and I'm going to just make my little office back here an eye clinic. That voids coverage. So you just got to talk. The most important thing, I think, is to talk to your insurance agent about all these things that you may have. A boat. We're in Carrollwood. We're very close to Odessa. There's a lot of folks that live on lakes. They may go out and buy a boat cash and not even think about the insurance perspective and or they think it's covered under my homeowner's policy. But once the boat goes so fast or is a certain length, no liability coverage under the home policy. And you can buy, or a jet ski, that's a popular one. People buy jet skis, and then, really bad things happen on jet skis. You have inexperienced drivers that you're going towards danger and you let off the gas like a car and you now have no steering. So now you get into a bad accident, liability, or somebody gets hurt on it, or you run into somebody's property or something like that. And all these things can be solved for hundreds of dollars, typically. Golf cart, jet ski, and that people just they don't think to tell their agent about it.
Man. I know we kind of touched on flood insurance as well, and that typically confuses homeowners. When is it actually required? When is it recommended? And how are the new FEMA flood maps changing things?
Well, I would say, when is it required? Always.
Yes.
We are in Florida. Florida is
100%.
one big flood zone. You either have preferred zones or risky zones. Let's say if you're buying a house out on St. Pete Beach, that's a risky zone. You're out on the beach, a barrier island. Maybe you're here in the Brandon area, you're kind of in the middle of the state, and you might not be in a risky flood zone, but you're still in a flood zone. So we always advise for our clients to look at their flood coverage. Preferred rates are generally very, very affordable at this time. When you're in a better preferred zone, your rates can be much, much lower. So we say, yes, we want everyone to have their flood insurance coverage. I think our area found that this year with Helene and Milton. We had so many folks with flooding issues that were in supposedly good or preferred flood zones and didn't have any flood insurance. So it was very catastrophic for our area.
Yeah, and statistically, over 25% of floods that occur happen in a preferred flood zone.
Yes.
So when we say preferred, you some people say X flood zone, preferred flood zone. That means the mortgage company doesn't require you to buy flood insurance, and that's where I think insurance agents can sometimes get a bad rap. It's like, well, my insurance agent didn't make me buy it. Well, no, it's the mortgage company that didn't make you buy it. We, like Paula, recommend it on every homeowner who buys it, who buys a house in Florida, for sure. Just down the road, Ehrlich Road here, my office is located, and in 2015, we had 30 days of rain. So the ground was very saturated. Then we had 14 inches in one night. My office flooded. I'm in an X flood zone just down the road here, and a ton of other people flooded too. Now, I had flood insurance because I obviously practice what I preach, right? I'm in a preferred flood zone, but I bought it, and it was like a $30,000 claim. I had 1 inch of water in my office, but all the floors had to be replaced, the baseboards. It can be very, very expensive. But to Paula's point, it's not that expensive to buy. It's very affordable if you're in that preferred flood zone. So that's the benefit of being in a preferred flood zone. The downside to it is the mortgage company doesn't require you to buy it, so not a lot of people buy flood insurance if they're in that preferred flood zone, but they need it.
And of course, our new trend are some homeowner companies to offer the home policy. They are requiring the flood insurance if they're in a risky flood zone. So some homeowner companies now will not cover your home, for your homeowners unless you have a flood policy. And I think we'll start seeing more and more of that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and that's because, sometimes they get drug into lawsuits when it's clearly a flood loss. Like you mentioned with the claims that we had last year, there wasn't a lot of wind damage claims. My office didn't take a lot of calls for wind damage, took a lot of calls for flood. And when the person has nowhere else to turn and somebody's knocking on their door and says, go ahead and try to file a claim under your homeowner's insurance company, people do. So I think that's part of the requirement of them saying, you know what, in order to insure your home, we're going to have you buy flood insurance too, just to make sure all your bases are covered.
Let's talk about the carriers. How are carriers determining premiums now? And are things like roof age, mitigation credits, inspections, are those things carrying more weight than before?
Oh, I would say yes. We know they are.
Yeah.
We know they are. Yes.
Yeah, I mean those things are all great factors. How close you are to the water, construction type of the building, right? If it's like the Three Little Pigs. If you build a house full of straw, it's going to blow over easier. A frame constructed home is going to blow over easier than a concrete block house, right? So those are factors for sure. And what's helpful is, yes, if the roof is newer and it's up to code, then you can get those wind mitigation credits. That's why that's so important. And then it's more eligibility criteria we find too. Like if your hot water heater is over 15 years old, like Paula mentioned, you got to maintain the house, right? The insurance company is there in case there is a loss that you don't foresee. A hurricane damages it, a tornado, a hailstorm, a fire, things like that. But if your hot water heater is 22 years old and blows up and floods out your house, well, that's kind of something where it's like, yeah, it was beyond its life expectancy. That's more of a company saying, we won't insure you unless you get a new hot water heater. They're not going to just charge more for it. And then the roof too, if the roof is over a certain age, a lot of times we're seeing 15 years old on a shingle roof. The companies will say, unless you get a new roof, we're not going to insure you, or we'll put this actual cash value endorsement on your policy, which gives you a very small amount if you do have roof damage. So that's a factor as well. But as a whole, I would say the market is softening because, and what that means is we're starting to see rate decreases filed with the different carriers. I think we had 18 new carriers come into the market in the last 12 months or file to start writing in Florida. That's all because of the reform that happened in 2022. Yes. In March of 22, DeSantis signed in a bill, and it really did help. It took a couple years to take hold and for the carriers to start really seeing the loss results, favorable loss results in Florida, but it's working. The more carriers are coming in, rates are coming down, there's more competition. Hopefully those pesky $10,000 water damage limitations that are on a lot of policies will start to go away because carriers are going to want to compete not just on price but on coverage as well to try to write the clients.
And I would say too, don't you find the underwriting is the strictest I think it's ever been?
Yeah.
So what happens to us as an agent if our realtors send us a home to quote? We start quoting them. Well, one company might say, oh, sorry, we're closing that county. Another company might say, sorry, we're closing that zip code. Another company might say, oh, wait, your roof is too old. We won't offer you a policy. Oh, wait, there was a prior claim on this house. Even though there's a new home purchaser buying the house, when there's a claim on that property, it stays with the property and it can affect the new homeowners. I know it's kind of crazy to believe, but the claims do stay on the properties and it can affect a new policy for a new owner. So we are just getting stricter and stricter with our underwriting. Yeah.
Citizens Insurance has been the headlines lately. For those unfamiliar, can you explain its role and when it makes sense or doesn't for homeowners?
Well, if you like, I can start on that.
Yes, sure.
Citizens is the state of Florida. They are truly the last resort of insurance. They were founded right after Hurricane Andrew hit and devastated Miami back in '92. Because what happened then, Andrew came, and of course many of y'all remember that. We had so many companies go bankrupt right after that storm, they couldn't pay the claims. I think 13 or 16 homeowner companies went bankrupt, and then many carriers started no longer writing policies in Florida. So if you were buying a house after Andrew, you might not have been able to find coverage. The state then formed Citizens to be a last resort. Now here we are years later, Citizens did blossom into the largest homeowner carrier in the state a few years back, which they were never meant to be that large. So they are a last resort, and they still are a last last resort. I would say what I see with our clients is, in some cases, for harder to place homes that are difficult, Citizens can sometimes still have the most competitive rate. So for our clients, a lot of them will choose to go with Citizens just based on the premium if it's somewhat of a challenging home to insure, but it's still the last resort for people.
Yeah, it's the last resort. We try not to write with Citizens, as I'm sure you don't either. It's difficult to write with them. But what gets hard is they're quasi governmental, so it becomes a legislative football during the season when folks are up there deciding on laws and whatnot. And Governor Chris actually put in the glide path, which causes Citizens, you would think an insurer of last resort should be the most expensive, right? I have nowhere else to go. It should be the most expensive. But unfortunately, because of the glide path that was put in years ago, they became very competitive and they blew up. And then when it was a very hard market, nobody wanted to write or rates were really high. A lot of policies went into Citizens. Because we have so many carriers now coming into the market, you're seeing these takeouts. So Citizens is shrinking, which is good. What Citizens insureds don't realize sometimes, again, it's very important to have a well-educated agent to explain this to you, is Citizens doesn't have to follow the same rules as a normal insurance company, I won't say any names, but anyways, like a normal insurance company that writes in Florida, they have to file their ratings. They have to have certain reinsurance bought to make sure that they don't go out of business if we do have that big claim. Citizens doesn't have to comply with that. So they don't have as much reinsurance a lot of times as these other carriers do, which means they will assess their policyholders. So if the big Andrew hits or Melissa would have crushed Tampa Bay, then, potentially Citizens gets to a point where they can't pay the claims. So now all the Citizens policyholders get assessed. If that's not enough money, then all the property owners in Florida get assessed. And then you could potentially, if we had two Melissas, which, in 2004, we had Charlie, Francis, Ivan, and Jean all hit Florida. 4 storms, right? That's when we created the calendar year deductible on the hurricane, but I won't go down that path. But if you have that situation happen and the Citizens runs out of money, then that's a liability for the state. It's bad. So that's why there was such urgency on, oh my gosh, Citizens has like 1.4, 1.5 million policyholders. We need to get this number down because it's trillions of dollars on the line if we have some really bad storms. We've been lucky, right, in Florida this year. No hurricanes have touched, I don't think, any of the United States this year. Jamaica, unfortunately, not so lucky. And we're almost done with hurricane season, which is good because then hopefully that means reinsurance costs will come down next year. Again, that's directly impacts our rates that we pay that are property owners in Florida. But yeah, so we try to sell against Citizens and put it with the private market if we can, even, if it's more expensive. Plus Citizens policy isn't as robust as the private market. You can't get certain coverages that you can in the private market on a Citizens policy. Personal liability is one. We talked about animal liability. You can only get $100,000 up to $100,000 with Citizens. They won't go above $100,000. You have to supplement that with another policy. So then you've got all these policies potentially to try to cobble together a policy that you could get in the private market.
So as they try to supplement things, what are some proactive things homeowners can do to lower their premiums without sacrificing coverage?
Well, I would say I could start.
Yeah.
We're seeing a trend now where there are new water devices that you can put in your home. Let's say by your drains and whatnot and pipes that can alert you if there is an active water leak. Some of our companies now are giving discounts for that. The programs now are very affordable to get those water programs. There's various different programs, and that's one thing to do where companies are starting to give credits. I think more will give credits as well. You had mentioned earlier too the replacement cost versus actual cash value. With many of our clients, to lower the rates, they will try to lower anything they can to get a lower rate. But if people still feel that they can tolerate that risk, that might be an option for folks just to lower their premium. Of course, as you raise your deductibles, your rates go lower, or if you lower some of your coverages, your rates will go lower. But it's all individual for folks what your risk might be. Do you feel you can incur that or perhaps not incur that? The other thing folks can do is truly keep their homes well maintained. You mentioned the water heaters and so forth. The companies are getting so strict. If you do have an older water heater or maybe an older breaker box, or you've got vines growing on your wall and trees hitting the roof, these are the things the companies look for. So if you keep your home well maintained, that certainly helps.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you covered a lot of the things. I mean, if you're in a gated community, you can get a discount. If you have centrally monitored alarm, you know, if you've got ADT or something that monitors your alarm, there's some potential discounts there. And then just going through your coverages and making sure, you know, sometimes policies, if you have $1 million coverage A house, right? So it's going to cost $1 million to rebuild your house. If 50%, so the coverage C amount, which is your personal property, then it's usually half. And some people might say, well, yeah, my house is $1 million to rebuild, but I only have $300,000 worth of coverage or worth of stuff in the house that I need to cover. And we can lower that limit, and that helps to relieve some premium too. So it's really just doing what we call a care review with the client, just going through those coverages line by line to make sure it makes sense. Sometimes there's an other structures coverage, and you're like, well, I don't have a shed. I don't have anything in the side yard, so I don't need that coverage. So we can remove that coverage to save some money too.
Perfect. And on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be come back shortly to Hot Topics live at Fabre Framework Studios. And we are back. Hot Topics live from Fabre Framework Studios. And we're going to heat things up, going straight to the hot seat now. Here's how it works. Each of you gets 2 minutes to make your best pitch directly to our listeners. Tell them why your agency should be their go-to partner, what makes your team stand out, what sets your service apart, and how you're helping clients protect their most valuable investment, their home. Paula, you're up first.
I'm up first. Okay. Hey, I have 2 minutes. Well, hey, everybody. I'm Paula Blanda, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself and our agency. I moved here to Tampa back when I was a little tyke because my father, after leaving playing pro football, went into the insurance business. So when I was a little kid, my dad was always talking about insurance. Of course, I didn't even know what he was talking about. But I did see a huge change in him one day when he came home. He was in the life insurance business. He had just delivered a check to a widow whose husband was killed in a car accident with 2 small children. My father was their life insurance agent. When he came home, he had tears in his eyes, and that has stuck with me to this day. Even though I was 3 years old and I didn't really know what insurance was, I knew that it was very, very important. So I have been raised within the industry, and I still feel passionate about insurance. And we know, of course, now with Florida being so challenging, our rates being probably the highest in the nation, it's very disconcerting to a lot of us. But basically, you know, we're here for you, and I believe in it, and I'm passionate about it. So if you like to work with people that are passionate, I can be your gal. Also, I've been in the business since I was a child, so I've got loads of experience. I thank you as well. So I think we've seen everything, it seems like her, but sometimes there's still surprises coming. But it's good to work with an experienced agent. Also, being an independent agent, we have hundreds of companies for you. So when we quote you, whether it's your home or flood or business or even auto insurance, we'll quote you with a ton of carriers to find you the most competitive rate. Lastly, you are our family. We are here to build a relationship with you and help you. I give all my clients my cell phone number, and here it is if y'all want to jot it down. It's 727-565-5108. 727-565-5108. You can call me anytime on my cell phone. I do get calls from folks in the evenings and on weekends, or even some folks that are in the middle of a claim or a car accident, but that's why we give you our cell phone number. We want you to be able to reach us. So if you're looking for an experienced agent that's passionate, that will give you cell phone and access and also go have a beer with you, I'm Paula the Insurance Lady, and I can be your insurance gal.
Love it. Karen, you're up.
All right, that's hard to compete with. Well, you got St. Pete covered. We're here in Tampa, but like Paula, yes, I grew up in the insurance world. My dad started the agency in 1971. He had moved down here in the steel industry, and the insurance industry recruited him. Believe it or not, he never thought he would end up in insurance. And like Paula, I have a similar memory of a home. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. It was a business. It was a commercial property on Dale Mabry, and they had a fire. And this is back when I was a teeny little kid. And my dad went out because the building was unsecured with his loss control guy, and they sat in front of the building to make sure it did not get robbed or burglarized until the mitigation company could get there the next day. And I thought that was pretty cool that he was, you know, that caring to be able to go out there and protect that business. I went to Florida State University and graduated in risk management. It's one of the top 5 programs in the country, so definitely an insurance nerd here. I then got my CPCU designation, which is Chartered Property Casualty Underwriter. It's a 10-part series, or it was at the time when I got it. all handwritten exams, again, very in-depth knowledge in insurance. And then I went on and got my CIC designation, certified insurance counselor. That's more hands-on type realistic stuff. And I try to impart that to my staff. We've got a staff of 20 folks here in Carrollwood that can help. We have folks that are specializing just in the sale part of it. So if a realtor wants to call us and say, hey, my client's thinking about buying this house, can you run some quotes? We have folks that just do that, where they focus on sales. And then once they get the policy issued and the person's taken care of, then it goes to the service team. So just like Paula, we're available all the time to help with that. I'm super involved in the industry, so I kind of know what's happening before it actually happens. The Florida Association of Insurance Agents, I've been on the board for 7 years. The last stint, I was the chair of that board, and I'm still on the executive committee there. So I get to find out about new insurance companies that are coming into the state before anybody else does, and a lot of things. So I pass that information along to my staff so that they are well informed on what's coming and why. And I know insurance is very frustrating, and nobody really wants to buy it. But then when you need it, you want as much as you can get of it. We're the type of agency that I had a claim recently where one of my clients had a fire in the garage. His golf cart, we mentioned golf carts earlier, the battery just caught on fire. It's all on camera because he has little kids. So he videos everything to make sure that little kids aren't getting into stuff. So it's all right there on camera. The fire happens, smoke. He has cameras inside the house too. He gets out of bed because the smoke alarm's going off. He opens the door real quick, opens and closes it. Smoke comes into the house. Caused $700,000 worth of damage just because of that one little open close. All the appliances had to be replaced. Everything had to be repainted. All of his air conditioning units had to be replaced. It was a big house. I had he called, that was his first call, 3:30 in the morning. I answered. He told me what happened. I could hear the beeping in the background. The firefighters were there. Scary scenario. We had a restoration team out there by 5:30 in the morning to help board up the house, pull his clothes out that he needed for the next couple of weeks until we figured out what was going on, so that they could get those laundered. We got them in a hotel room and set up. So those are the types of things that we do for our customers. We're here. We're in the local community. We also provide great advice on different coverage options, review policies. If you just want to just send us your policy to say, hey, can you look at this and make sure I'm insured properly? Do I need these coverages? One of the most egregious ones I saw was two very wealthy people married and had $10,000 of liability coverage on their auto policy. I looked at it. I explained what it meant. He's like, we had this since medical school. No one's ever explained this to us. They ended up buying a $5 million umbrella because if they got into a little fender bender, all of their assets are at risk. Same thing if somebody comes onto your property and trips and falls, or gets into your golf cart and drives down the street and gets into a bad accident. Those are the types of things that we talk to our customers about just to make sure that they're comprehensively covered. Our office phone number is 813-960-4672, or you can email us info@cybertagency. It's S as in Sam, EI, B as in boy, ERT, agency.com. You can go to our website and request a quote. You can send us an email. You can give us a call. We text to you from the system if that's more convenient for you as well. You can send us a text message, and we look forward to hopefully helping you out. Thanks.
Perfect.
I have one more note on that. I say the FSU Insurance School is the best.
Oh, thank you. I
You said
appreciate
one
that.
of the top 5.
Nice.
We know it's the best.
Yes, of course. Go Knowles.
Oh, yes. Let's get back to the questions. Why should realtors be having insurance conversations early in the buying process instead of waiting until the end?
I can start on that if
Go
you'd
for
like.
it, yeah.
Well, I'd say it's priority 1. You have a deal on the table. You just got a contract signed. The first thing you do is get your 4-point inspection and wind mitigation inspection ordered with your good inspector that you work with. You should have a team with all your good inspectors, roofers, painters, plumbers, insurance, title, lenders, your associations to help you. Have your team together and know who you're dealing with, but get your 4-point and limit right away. Why? Well, there could be issues on the 4-point inspection. Perhaps it might say, gee, there's a breaker missing, or there's a leaky sink, or the roof has a hole in it. We need to know these things immediately so we can address them, so we can work and get the policy written. It's also a negotiation tool for y'all as realtors. If you do need some expensive repairs made, that can factor into your closing as well. So 4-point and wind mitt right away. Things take longer and longer these days, as you know. For example, if you might have to get electrical work done, it might take you a little bit longer these days to get a qualified electrician out there. So the more lead time we have, the better. And of course, if they're working with a lender, the lenders want their documents very, very early, usually 10 to 14 days prior to the closing date. So the sooner the better. Day one, wind mitt and 4-point, get those things rolling in.
Yeah, and just to add to what Paula said there, it's important too because a lot in the old days, the insurance companies used to say you got 30 days, you got 60 days to get it fixed, and they would let us bind the policy, which would let the person close on the property. Now, insurance companies are more strict, so they're saying, nope, this needs to be fixed before you can bind the policy. So to Paula's point, stuff takes longer to get fixed. So the sooner you know what those issues are, the better. Even if you're the seller, it might even be a good idea to get a 4-point inspection so you know what potentially could come up because you don't want insurance to kill the deal. And then flood insurance, you got to be careful with flood insurance because of the remapping and things that are going on. If somebody didn't buy flood insurance and then now they're in a high risk flood zone, flood insurance could be thousands of dollars a year extra that's not included in your budget, and maybe you think you can afford a certain amount of a house or a mortgage, and then you throw the $5,000 or $6,000 flood policy a year on top of it, and it kind of blows up the deal. So you want to know those things in advance for sure.
Also, it was a hot topic now. Federal government shutdown as we speak. What does that do to our national flood insurance?
No binding.
We can't write a policy, guys.
Yep.
We don't know how long this is going to be going on for.
Yep.
And
so a little trick to that is I just did it with a commercial property. You can, if the current person has a national flood insurance policy, you can transfer it to the new owner, but the new owner at closing has to pay the difference because the person who's transferring isn't getting any money back from the national flood insurance program. But yeah, it's been a real pain. You can bind private flood too, which is good. So potentially, if private flood is writing in that area, that can make a closing happen if the current person doesn't have flood insurance for some reason, so there's no policy to transfer. So you want to ask about private flood so it's not holding up the closing for you.
So you're saying they have that 4-point and the wind mitigation pretty early, quickly. What other kind of information should realtors gather up front and helps you guys quote policies a little more accurately and quickly? What else?
I think if you don't have the 4-point and wind mitt, when was the roof last replaced? How old is the hot water heater? A lot of times the current owner can answer that, or you can go on the county website and look, and maybe there's some information there on permits. But those are two really important factors when we're quoting it, because we might have a great option, but then it's like, oh, nope, the roof is too old, or oh, nope, they won't accept it because of the hot water heater. And if you know that in advance, that's really important. I'm sure there's other things too.
Oh, yes. And I've been advising my realtor partners to ask their clients, do they have any claims they've had even on prior homes, even if it was in another state, because that can pull up in our claims reporting. Folks can be buying a house here in Tampa Bay. If they've had a fire in their home up north, that can show up and potentially hurt them. Some companies will not offer a policy if they've had a prior fire, even in another state. And the same holds true with the property. You might be buying a new home and that property might have had some claims on it. That can hurt for the new purchase as well. I just had a beautiful home, a $4 million home in South Tampa, new purchase. There were 2 prior claims and it was very, very challenging to place coverage on this home. Beautiful brand new build house. The one claim, just interesting enough, their child had thrown a toy in the toilet.
Oh my
It backed
gosh.
up the whole system. And I think they had about $100,000 claim from the toy being thrown in. But it was the prior owner's claim. And it was extremely challenging for the new owner. So I asked realtors to go ahead and ask their folks, have you had any claims, even on other properties? So good question to ask.
Yeah, and that's important because prior claims, even if it's not that person who lived there, especially if it's water related, a toy in the toilet is certainly different than a leaky pipe, but they consider you higher risk. And so that's why they either don't want to write you or they'll charge you more if you yourself have had any claims. So yeah, that's why that's definitely important.
Yes,
So that's a good
yes,
point.
Yes.
What are the top 3 questions every homeowner should ask their insurance agent during renewal season?
Great question. Great question.
I would make sure you got all the discounts. Hey, I replaced I can't tell you how many times I replaced my roof 2 years ago. I didn't tell you guys. No, give us a wind mitigation. Get a wind mitigation discount, or get a wind mitigation completed, and then we can get you a discount on there. So just going through, double checking, making sure all the discounts are there. If you have an alarm, gated community, and then sometimes remarketing might be the best option if the insurance company took a huge rate increase or something like that, then sometimes we can find a better option for the client. We're careful with that though, because they're so strict that they come out within the first like 60 days of the policy being issued, a brand new policy. And they might say, oh, your trees need to be trimmed. And that's a $5,000 bill that you wouldn't have had if the carrier just would have renewed you. So we are careful with that, but those are some things to look for.
Yes, and I agree with that. We always say re-quote your insurance, and what we do, and I'm sure you do the same. As you come up for renewal, our staff of service people, about 45 to 60 days in advance, will start re-quoting your insurance. What can sometimes happen is your renewal can come, and that can be a higher premium for you. Well, meanwhile, maybe there's another company that's open to you now that might have a little bit more competitive rate. So we say re-quote, re-quote, re-quote. And also, as you come up for renewal, that is the time for your review that we all want to do with our clients, but it's the time you can potentially change your coverage. That might be a time when you go, gosh, I've had $1,000 deductible. I'm really not going to file a claim that low. I might want to go ahead and bump it up to $2,500. So just by increasing your deductible, which you can do at renewal, can lower your premium. So you want to reshop your coverage and also look and review your policy and potentially make any changes. I think that's the biggest things we can do at renewal.
And it's just a good reminder. I've had clients too that said, oh, I redid my kitchen, or I added on 1,000 square feet. I forgot. I didn't think to call the insurance person. And it's like, oh my gosh, no, we should have done a builder's risk policy for you, A, and B, now we need to change your coverage amount, which unfortunately would be an increase in premium, but at least you've got the coverage if you did have a bad situation happen.
What about with the pool?
With the pool.
Oh, like if someone puts in a pool? Yes, that's huge. You have to let your insurance carrier know. And most people do not do that. If they've already owned the house, they're putting in a pool and or a hot tub sometimes, they don't tell us and we don't find out. Yeah.
If someone's shopping for insurance right now, what's your best advice for getting the most value for their premium?
I'll start right now. Work with an independent agent.
100%.
You're in Florida, the most challenging state in the nation. I'll give you all a quick story on that too. We brought in an agent who had owned an Allstate agency in another state for 20 years, very successful. Moved down here to Florida, bring him on board. He just couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it. It's just we are the most challenging state, most challenging. So it's good to work with independent agents that have many, many companies and have a broad range of experience to help you. That I think is your number one. Independent agent is the way to go in Florida.
Totally agree. If you don't work with an independent agent and they only have one market, they're trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, if you will, where we've got, like Paula mentioned, 100 different companies. So depending on your claims history or what type of house you're buying, a lot of the times, independent agents have solutions that other agents may not, that only represent one company. So I would say that is definitely key. And then just talking, you can tell by who you're talking to if they're just going to gut the policy and give you this DP1 that only covers 3 things that happen versus somebody who will explain the differences to you and then let you make the decision. So that's what we're big on, is just educating the consumer. You can make the choice to buy the policy that, maybe I wouldn't buy, and that's fine, but at least you know what you're buying. Can't tell you the number of people that I talk to that have no idea what they have covered, what they don't have covered, what even things mean. So definitely work with an independent agent and somebody who can break it down and explain it to you.
What's one myth about Florida insurance you would love to retire once and for all?
Well, I've got one that's citizen specific.
Okay.
I've had so many folks go, well, citizens, they're the state. They have to do anything. Well, Citizens still has their guidelines. You might have a house that might be a rundown rental home, for example. They still have guidelines for the roof and water heater and 4-point inspection. So they don't have to take anything. There are still underwriting guidelines. And I think they're stricter with citizens than they are with anyone else.
Yeah,
We work
absolutely.
with them. Yes. So citizens, even though they're the last resort, they do have underwriting guidelines.
For me, when I hear people say full coverage, I go, because there's no such thing. Insurance covers certain perils. It's not the all-encompassing cover every possible scenario. If you did buy a policy like that, it would probably cost you $100,000 a year. It would be crazy, right? So that's not, maintenance and all these things aren't covered. So I would say that's the biggest myth. I do not like it when people say full coverage. I'm like, wait, there's no such thing as full coverage. And I go into explaining why.
All right, fun time. What's the strangest claim you've ever seen that actually got approved?
Whew. Okay, I was thinking, you have one?
I know.
You talked about your dog.
You go for it. You go first.
Well, it's
yeah.
funny that mine is a dog story too, of all things.
Okay.
And just to share, sometimes the breed of your dog can prohibit you from getting a homeowner policy. Some companies go, hey, if you have a Rottweiler or a Pit Bull, we're not going to cover your home. Then that's why your agent might ask you that. Do you have any dogs or animals? That's a very common question we ask every day. But I had a beautiful, affluent, gated community. There was someone riding their bike in the community down the street that didn't live there, and supposedly the dog ran out from the house and mangled their leg. They had a huge leg injury. No one ever saw it. The dog was in the house, I think, when it happened. It was very hard to prove that that dog ran out and did this, and the injury was very, very, very intense. And I think the company did end up paying an animal liability claim on that, even though they were just biking down the street and there was no proof of any of that. Maybe similar to your ACL with the dog. They were just biking in the neighborhood and they got a big claim out of it. Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah.
So I talked about it a little bit before. I was just referencing my notes because I was trying to rack my brain because I've seen some crazy stuff. Probably not some. I've one that I wouldn't say on air that was really crazy.
Yeah.
But the golf cart situation was scary because that's one where the golf cart wasn't even charging and just caught on fire. And when I called out the restoration company out there, which was wonderful, they got out there really fast. They said, you know what, this just happened 3 months ago, right around the corner, same exact thing happened. So, that was a big claim just from opening and closing the door, $700,000 on the inside, plus the garage and all that stuff. I mean, that was over $1 million situation that just because a battery malfunctioned and caught on fire. Now, that it's going to work through the system because it's obviously whoever manufactured that battery made a mistake for it to just spontaneously explode. So there's a bunch of other people that are drug into it, but the homeowners insurance company is on the hook for it first, and then they call subrogation. So they're subrogating against the manufacturer, but that could take 10 years to get their money back.
Right.
So
I know.
Finish this sentence. A smart Florida homeowner always
knows their agent and's got their number and talks to them regularly.
I was going to say, calls their agent first, for sure.
Okay.
Call us because, I've had silly things like one of my clients hit their own mailbox with their a $500 claim. And I'm like, you could turn it in, but it's an at-fault accident, right? And nobody's hurt. Everybody in the car was fine. The mailbox got destroyed. Replace the mailbox. Don't call in a claim, Same thing on the homeowner side. There may be situations that we would advise, why don't you have a water restoration person look at that maybe before we call the insurance company to file a claim. So yeah, just like Paula said, call your agent. Know who your agent is, call your agent.
Yeah.
How can our agents partner more effectively with insurance professionals to set those realistic expectations for their clients?
Oh, that's a great question. And I'm back to build your team. Have your team, and especially with your insurance agent, and let your agent know right away when you got the deal on the table. Go ahead and give them the address, introduce them to the client, get your 4-point enwindment, be proactive, and have your team together for whatever you might need done.
Yeah, and you can even give examples, like if you have some listings or something, you can run it by our person just to get an idea. Of course, whoever's buying the house, it matters with their claims history and things like that. But you can say, it just gives the real estate agent a little bit more, or the realtor a little bit more knowledge on understanding the different factors and how they impact the rate.
I know you said something about the government shutdown. So I do want to talk about, what do agents misunderstand about the timing of binding insurance policies during a transaction?
Oh.
Sometimes it takes longer than you think, right? Like if something gets hung up in underwriting or something might have, we say, a little hair on it that we need an exception on. We are the facilitator of information, but we unfortunately sometimes can't push the bind button without the underwriter's approval. And if we can't get the underwriter on the phone, or we can't get them to respond timely, or sometimes we have to send it up higher, it takes longer. Also, if there's a storm brewing out there, once one carrier decides there's a hurricane headed towards Florida and we want to stop writing, they all follow suit. they find out that, oh, this one carrier stopped writing, so we don't want to be adversely selected against, because what the insurance company doesn't want is a bunch of people running to buy insurance right before a hurricane or a storm comes. So to do that, they do a binding restriction. And unfortunately, if you're buying a house, you might get caught up in that binding restriction because a hurricane is headed towards Florida and companies stop writing. And so if you know that there's a storm out there that looks like it might be heading towards Florida, I would say definitely get the bind request in early to get the insurance taken care of so it doesn't hold up the closing.
Yes, I echo that. The earlier the better. And also, we can bind policies with most companies at least 30 days in advance. So we could potentially bind a policy today for someone that's closing in 30 days, but we already have the policy in place, but we make it effective the day of the closing. So we can do earlier binding to help make sure the policy's in place.
Yep.
Listen, a huge thank you to both of you, Paula, Karen. Thank you for joining us here live from the Fabre Framework Studio. Download, subscribe, share, turn on your notifications so you never miss the heat. More expert guests, real talk, and game-changing tips are coming your way on Hot Topics. This is your host, signing off. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, delivering value, stay protected, and standing out like the star you are.